Isn't it interesting how a game like football, with 11 players on each side, can turn so personal? If you've ever seen fans from rival clubs go at it, or if you've been in the thick of such debates yourself, you know how intense it can get. And it's not just the fans, the players feel it too. They're human, after all. So here's a look at 5 football legends who, believe it or not, can't stand each other. Luis Suarez and Patrice Evra. Suarez is regarded by many as one of the most complete strikers of his generation and one of the best strikers of all time. At every single club he played, he did wonders with the ball, but he also picked up a few enemies along the way, which is hardly surprising considering his peculiar antics. I imagine it's a little tricky to get along with someone who answers confrontations or starts one with his teeth in your neck. Easy, Dracula. Strangely, this hatred wasn't a result of a bite fiasco, but instead racial abuse. On the 15th of October in 2011, Liverpool were held to a 1-1 draw at Anfield by Manchester United. Still, the highlight of that match happened afterward when Patrice Evra reported Luis Suarez to the referee for calling him Negrito, meaning Negro, several times during the game. Suarez was found guilty, and he was banned for 8 games plus a €40,000 fine. Liverpool maintained that Suarez was innocent, mostly due to Suarez's statement that in his native homeland Uruguay, the term Negrito is an affectionate word and not a racist slur. Okay, Suarez, whatever you say. Things were certainly far from being over, as Suarez's second game back from the ban was against Manchester United on the 15th of February 2012. Suarez caused another controversy, this time before the game started, when he refused to shake Evra's hand before kickoff. At halftime, he also kicked the ball viciously at the Manchester United dugout, which led to a team clash in the tunnels. Evra would get his moment later on though, after Manchester United went on to win the game 2-1. Evra couldn't let the opportunity pass him by, and he had a little victory lap around the pitch and ended it by celebrating in Suarez's face. They still don't fancy each other much, even after a decade. As heated as this beef was, it doesn't compare in the slightest to what happened between one of the greatest midfielders in football and one of its greatest goalkeepers. Kevin De Bruyne and Thibaut Courtois. This hatred began far away from the pitch, or more precisely, the football pitch, because I ask, where do you draw the line in a friendship? Or at what point do you consider a friendship to be irredeemable? Different strokes for different folks, but nobody likes it when their so-called best friend sleeps with their so-called wife. De Bruyne and Courtois went from being teammates and best friends in Belgium to hating each other's existence, and it's all because Courtois couldn't keep his pipe in his pants, and he hid it in Kevin's wife. It all started when she traveled to a city Thibaut was in, and she slid in his DMs. In the words of a wise poet, it goes down in the DM, so I can imagine you know what happened next. As if that wasn't embarrassing enough, this sheik didn't have the decency to own up to her own mistake and still blamed her infidelity on Kevin after the media were having a field day at Kevin's expense. In an interview she said, and I quote, "That evening, Thibaut offered me what I had not received during a 3-year relationship with Kevin. With Thibaut, I could talk about anything and everything, and he had even prepared me a delicious meal. Kevin never did it for me." If Thibaut weren't such a fantastic goalkeeper, I would say he should try his hands at being a striker because he's a sharpshooter for sure. Ladies need to learn that guys would say and do almost anything to get laid. Well, the marriage crashed, expectedly. And Kevin and Thibaut's friendship couldn't be saved, not even by Thibaut's insane reflexes. If you're wondering if Kevin has moved on, you should tell from the fact that he never fails to deliver an absolute masterclass performance against Thibaut and scorebangers, or from how his face went from ecstatic to disappointed when he unlocked Courtois in FIFA. You might rule that pitch, Thibaut, but I will always rule yours. Mauro Icardi and Maxi Lopez. When you think nobody can top Thibaut Courtois, another footballer kicks it up a notch because sleeping with a friend's wife is one thing, but marrying her and getting a tattoo of her kids is a whole different ballgame. Mario Icardi definitely has some balls on him because he didn't hesitate to put his in Maxi Lopez's wife and then proceeded to put a ring on her finger. Maxi Lopez and Mario Icardi were best friends at one time and played together a few times. Even with a 9-year age gap between them, it didn't affect their friendship one bit, with Lopez even taking Icardi under his wings when he first arrived in Italy. When Lopez was 31 years to Icardi's 22, Mauro decided to repay him by not just sleeping with his now ex-wife Wanda Nara, but dating her in 2013. Friend of the Year, People. As a final thank you and goodbye, Icardi married her in 2014 and even tattooed her children, also Lopez's kids, on his arm. I mean, how low can you get? If you're wondering why a fine striker like Mauro Icardi never played for Argentina, this is why. Players can't worry about beating the opposition and worry about their wives at the same time. I can't say they missed him. The last time they faced each other, Lopez refused to shake him, and they don't seem to end their bad blood soon if their occasional banter on Twitter is to be believed. Zlatan Ibrahimovic and Marco Materazzi. If you've ever heard of the saying, "Don't piss off Zlatan," it's for good reason. When Zlatan joined Juventus, he somehow got on the bad side of Marco Materazzi. During the game between Juventus and Inter Milan, Marco tackled him so badly that Zlatan had to be removed by the coach to prevent an injury. It's a miracle Zlatan wasn't injured, because that tackle would have blown out most players' knees. That tackle left a sour taste in Zlatan's mouth, not because of the tackle itself, but because he couldn't get revenge in that same match. But he never forgot, and he waited for his moment. His opportunity came years later during a match between AC Milan and Inter Milan, when Zlatan had just joined AC Milan. Zlatan wasn't the only one with an agenda, because Marco felt he didn't finish the job, and he tackled Zlatan again, but this time in the penalty box. Zlatan won a penalty, which he dispatched viciously. You know how some players get fouled or viciously tackled, and they respond on the pitch by scoring goals or embarrassing the opponent with mesmerizing dribbles. Well, a goal wasn't enough for Zlatan, and he had to send a message. He sent a loud message when he brought kung fu moves onto the pitch and took down Marco with a flying kick to the mid-area and an elbow to the face. Marco had to be rushed to the hospital, and when Zlatan was asked, he said, "I've been waiting for this moment for 4 years." Roy Keane and Alfie Haaland. A fun stat is that Haaland has 8 goal contributions against Manchester United in 4 matches, including a hat-trick and a trophy at the Red Devils' expense. While the Manchester Derby packs enough clout to want to prove a point, Haaland's monstrous performances against Manchester United have a much more personal backstory. It all started a few years back with Roy Keane and Erling's daddy, Alfie Haaland. Roy Keane is one of the most fiery players to ever play in the Premier League. You could easily list 10 players who had beef with Roy Keane because the man never shied away from a fight. But his rivalry with Alfie has to be the biggest of them all. In 1997, when Alfie still played for Leeds United, Keane tried a tackle on Alfie to foul him but got himself injured. Like father, like son. Alfie felt Keane was faking an injury to escape punishment from the referee and taunted him while he lay on the floor. But as it turned out, Keane had torn his ACL, an injury that left him sidelined for a year. Their next encounter was 4 years later, in 2001. This time, Alfie played for Manchester City. Another fun fact is that before this game, Alfie had never suffered an injury before in his career. But in the middle of the game, Keane unleashed a vicious tackle that got him a straight red card, and Alfie had to retire after because he never fully recovered from that injury. To show he intentionally targeted Alfie, Keane walked to Alfie on the floor and told him, "I'd waited long enough. Take that, you cunt." Keane maintains that it was an act of revenge and does not regret his actions, making this hatred even more sinister. Erling Haaland never got to face Roy Keane, but Manchester United might be paying for that crime for years to come. With this, we've come to the end of the video. Please don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell to know when we drop another banger. Season's greetings, and we'll see you in the next one.